Hi everyone. Today video is on Angular 14 CRUD example using NgRx data. Okay, so what is NgRx data? NgRx data is a abstraction for the NgRx store. In general, NgRx contains actions, reducers, selectors, effects. All these things we have to create manually in NgRx store. So each uh, type we generally will create separate files. Like that, based on our business, we are going to create the files. For suppose if my business involves services like customers, orders, products. So three type of entities. So in NGRX store, what we have to do, we have to create files for all these three, like individually, like effects and actions and reduces selectors for customers. Okay, four files. Similarly, products, another four files, and orders, another four files. Okay, like a sample example I am explaining. So total 12 files I have to maintain for creating the store for three services by using the NGRX store. So it is good for maintaining the state management, but here the number of files count is increasing. So that will affect the JS that's going to be generated as an Angular JS will be huge. Okay. So one of the main drawback of NGRX store is like a heavy file size. So using NGRX data, we can overcome it. Okay. So all these things like just one or two files with the minimum code, we can implement the state management using the NGRX data. So what will happen in NGRX data means, if you observe this diagram, the entity action and entity collection reducer and selector and entity collection, all these things resides inside of the gray area, right? So all these things I won't create explicitly. So everything is taken care by the NGRX only, NGRX data only. So NGRX data is a abstraction, okay, like a layer over the NGRX store. So by doing this, what will happen? We no need to create like four files, like a reducer one file, action one file, and entity one file, like that. We no need to create explicitly. Everything will be carried out by the NGRX data, and NGRX data provides us default properties and default methods for invoking the APIs or fetching the data from the store. Okay, we no need to bother about how to update the data into the state or how to retrieve the data from the state. Everything will be simply carried out by the NGRX data. So NGRX data by default works based on the entity. Entity means, for suppose our application contains products, orders, and customers. So three different services. For these three different services, I will have three different entities, nothing but a class, nothing but a API response model. Okay, so each model I have to register for the respective service. So only this model creation is enough for the NGRX data. Okay, that is why it is based on the entity model type. Okay, but when to use this NGRX data? NGRX data only can be used when your application involves in lot of CRUD operation. CRUD operation means create, read, update operation. Okay. If it is not much involving in the CRUD, then it is good to use the NGRX store only. Okay. And it is also recommended that you can use both NGRX store and NGRX data combinedly in a single application, because we can get more benefit by using both. Okay. So now let's jump into create a sample application and understand how simple it is to use the NGRX data. Okay. And one more point I have forgot to mention, since it is a entity based, right? We should contain a primary key value, just like the database. Okay. You can give any property in the response object as a primary key. Okay. By default, if it contains property like ID, it will consider as a primary key. If not, we have to specify explicitly in the metadata configuration. So all those things we are going to see live while creating our sample. Okay, let's jump into create the Angular example. Okay, here is the Angular CLI command for generating the Angular project. So command is like ng space new space name of your project. So let's run the command. So CLI asks us to choose some configuration options like Angular routing. So here in this demo, I'm going to use lazy loading in the sample. So routing is required. So click yes by saying Y. And here I'm going to choose the simple CSS as my styling file. Project created successfully. Let's open the project in Visual Studio Code editor. So here is my Angular 14 application. You can check the version at the package.json file. Okay, Angular 14 version. And now let's install the bootstrap package for applying the style to my pages. Okay, for that open the terminal and the command is like npm install bootstrap. Okay, after bootstrap installation completes, we have to configure the JS and CSS files into the angular.json file. Okay, for that, let's go to angular.json file. Here we have to configure the CSS reference file from the bootstrap modules. Okay, okay. Same way we have to configure the JS file that is here under the scripts. Okay. Now first let's run my Angular application. So command to run Angular application is ngSer. So default look and feel of our Angular application is this. So there is some default HTML that was available in the app component.html file. Now I want to remove all this content and first I want to add a bootstrap menu or navbar here. So go to bootstrap website and go to docs, and here in the components you can find navbar. Okay, so let's copy some navbar from here. Let me copy this and go to app component.html file, and let's remove all the HTML content. Okay, except the router outlet tag, and here paste the content, and let's add two more tags like container fluid, okay, and navbar brand. And in this demo I'm going to use CRUD operation on cakes, like cake that contains name, price and description. Okay, so here my website name will be a bakery. Okay, now if I check the website, so I want not dark warning that gives me orange color. So here is my Angular application. And now I have mentioned that I am going to do CRUD on cakes, right? So we need a API to consume the server calls. Okay. For that, I am going to set up a fake API using the Json server. For that, search like Json server, and here you can observe a GitHub link. Go there, and it is very simple, a two-step process. Okay. So if you haven't installed Json server into your local machine, just run this command npm install -g Json server. So that's going to install the Json server into our own local machine at a global way. Okay. So if you install global way, you can access it wherever you want. Okay. And to run, once it is installed, it is very simple to use it. We have to run the server. Once we run, a db.json file will be generated, and that db.json file will be a static file where our data will be stored as a temporary. So db.json file is like a database. Okay. So to run the JSON server, this is the command. JSON server hyphen watch db.json file. Okay, copy this command, and what I'm going to do means I'm going to create a command in my package.json file for easy reference. Okay, I will name it like JSON run, and I'm going to paste the command. Okay, so now I can simply use this command to run JSON server into my Angular application itself. Okay, in real-time application, we no need this fake server because we are going to use the real API. At the time, no need of installing or adding this configuration. This is purely for development and for the learners. Okay, so now let's run this command. For that, open one more terminal and npm run command json-run. Okay, sorry, I haven't saved the package.json changes. Now rerun the command. Okay, now it is executing. Here you can see few API endpoints we can see here. That is because it generates a db.json file. Based on the object structure, it's create endpoints. Means if the root, post, comments, and profile, right? So each one is a one endpoint. I don't want all these things for my demo. I remove this, and my endpoint I want as a cakes. I will utilize ID. I will use instead of title, I can use name of the cake. Okay, like red velvet. Okay, and the description. Creamy red colored cake. Okay, some random description and cost. Okay, some $200. Okay, this is my endpoint. Now cakes is my endpoint. If I check the terminal, it will generate new endpoint like cakes. Okay, copy this, and if you navigate in the browser, you can see API response. Okay, so we are fi finally set up the some fake server into our application. And not only this, here is the documentation how to call a get API call, how to post, put, delete, and patch. Means it will support all CRUD operations. This take JSON server. Okay. Now let's install the NgRx data package. Okay. To install it, go to NgRx docs. Okay, here data is there, right? Go to there and @NgRx Data, and here is the installation. So here you can see NgRx Data command for installing. But NgRx Data is not a standalone package. It is an abstraction over the NgRx store packages. That means it is dependent on the all the NgRx store packages. That means first we have to install them. So first go to state, go to store, installation. Okay, copy the command and go to the terminal. So let's install the store first. So it is asked for auto configurations. Say yes. Okay. Now next package that we required is NgRx effects. So go there, installation tab, copy the command, install it, and say yes for auto configurations. Okay, the next command we have to install, that is NgRx entity. So install NgRx, sorry, okay, sorry, I copied entity only. In entity, go to installation tabs, copy the command, okay, okay, now it is entity, install it, and allow auto configurations. Okay, and now finally we can install the NgRx store, sorry, NgRx data. So go to NgRx data, install tab, so copy the data command, so allow auto configurations. So that's about the NgRx packages. And if you go to the app module, you can see store, effects, and entity module. Okay, all these configurations are added. And one more thing we have to remember, that is entity data model should always be after a store module and effects module. If you move this line of code here, then NgRx state won't work. Okay, so make sure that. And by default, it's have some configurations like entity metadata. Okay, so here it will generate in, so this file is generated by the NgRx data command. Okay, and here you can configure all your entities like a customer, order, or a sales. All those entities must be registered inside of this entity map and plurals. Okay, if they are global. But I'm going to use lazy loading, right? So what I will do, I am going to create the entities and the entity metadata separately, or designated module level files I will create. Okay. And one more thing, API calls, effects invocation, everything carried out by the automatically by the NgRx data. So what we have to do, we have to import one more module like HTTP client module. Okay. Now what I will do, I am going to create a module, future module, or a child module like cakes. And after creating the modules inside of it, I am going to create a one child component like home component. Okay. So let's create them. So command is like ng generate module, and name of my module is cakes. And I want to use routing also. For that, I can specify flag like routing. Okay. So here You can see a cakes module folder and cake module and cake routing module are added. Okay, now let's uh, add the lazy loading routing. Okay, so for that in the app routing, go to app routing. Here I can specify the default home path like empty means home path. Okay, and here I want to load the children, not the component because lazy loading, right? In the app routing module, we will configure all the route modules here. Okay, now here arrow function. /cake module, then the type of the module. Okay, so this is the lazy loading routing. Now let's add a child component like home inside of the cake module. For that, NgGenerate component inside of the cakes folder. Component name is home, and I don't want any auto-generated spec files. Okay, so I can specify flag like -skip -text. Okay, so here you can see home component files generated. Let's go to cakes folder, and it contains a home component folder and home component files. Now in the cake routing module, let's configure our home component. So go to cake routing module. Here path will be home path. Okay, and the component I'm going to specify is home component. Okay, now if I reload the page, see home works. That the text sample text coming from the home component.html file. Okay, now for my cake module, I want to create a entity because NgRx data purely depends upon the entities, nothing but response model array class. And also I am going to create a entity metadata file with respect to this cake module only. Okay. If you want to configure store at global level, you can add it here, register it here, your cake model. But I want to utilize the benefit of lazy loading. I am going to create a designated metadata file in cake module. Okay. So first let's create the entity that is cakes, the cake module, ng generate interface. Okay. And where I want to create inside of the cakes folder. Inside of the cakes folder, I want one more folder like store. Inside of that, I want the interface name that is cakes. Okay, and the cakes file is generated. Let's go to cakes file, cakes.ts file. Okay, here let's define the properties of my response type. So for that, I can use db.json file. Okay, make it small d, everything small, right? So copy this and add them as here properties. So get rid of this. It is a number and no need of double quotes. Semicolon. Name and it will be a string. Okay. Description and it will be a string. Cost a number. Okay. This is my model for my store state that is going to be used by the NgRx. This as a state model. Okay. Now we have to register this data into the metadata file. So for that, I am going to create a metadata file for my cake module level. Okay, ng generate. I will create it like a class inside of the cakes, inside of the store folder. Okay, name of the my entity metadata is cake -entity -metadata. data. I don't want any spec files, skip tests. So entity metadata has been created. Okay. So go to cake entity metadata. No need of this class. Simply we will have a export a constant. Okay. Cake entity metadata. Okay, it will inherit the entity metadata map. Okay, so here we have to do mappings. So here I will specify a name like cake property. So this is the name. Okay, we have placed a key role while creating a service for this cake entity. Okay, with this name only. Okay, this name has a lot of crucial impact. Okay, so cake, and with this name only with a plural value, API also automatically uses by the NgRx data itself. That also I'm going to show you. Okay, here we need to do some configurations like primary key registration. So select ID. Okay, sorry, is like object literal here. Okay, now I can see intelligence here. Select ID. Lot of other configurations also you can see. Lot of further other configurations. Okay, so I want to configure the primary key explicitly. So what I can do, I will pass anonymous object here of my kx type, and here I have to return the which property you want to use as primary key. In general, we use ID. This is the optional because I have ID property by default. If I don't have an ID property, I have something like my key, then I have to explicitly specify like this. Okay, but for our understanding, better I am having a ID as a ID, but I am specifying explicitly. Okay, now this metadata should be registered. Okay, in general, if you observe normal metadata .ts file which gets created while installing the NgRx data, this configurations directly registered in the app module, means that is global level. But I want lazy loading, right? Means future level or the child module level, right? So to register our cake entity at the cake module level, we have to go to cake module.ts file. Okay, here inside of the class, with the help of constructor. Okay, so here inject entity definition service. Okay, so that will be entity definition service that loads from the NgRx data. Okay, now to this service entity definition service dot register metadata map. Okay, here I have to pass my cake entity metadata. So copy this and pass it over here and import the namespace. So that's it. Lazy loading configuration for the entity metadata. Okay. Now let's try to read operation, means fetching the all cake data and render it on the UI with the help of the NgRx data. And it is very simple because we no need to write the actions, reducers, selectors or effects. Everything will be automatically taken care by the NgRx data. Okay, so what I will do, go to home component. I want to render the data, right? Here I have to, so basically all these fetching or calling default API calls. In NgRx data, the heart of the service is entity collection service. That is the heart of the NgRx data. Okay, so it contains all the abstract methods, selectors for calling the API calls or fetching the data from the store. Okay, so to generate a instance of the entity collection class, we have to inject the service factory. Okay, service factory, and its type is entity collection service factory that loads from the NgRx data. Okay, now let's initialize the service data. Okay, so cake service. Okay, and I want entity collection service, not service factory, service that is also from NgRx data of type my cakes, right? Cakes instance. Okay, so this is the generic service. So any type of entity model you can access by specifying this service. Okay, now inside of the constructor, let's assign the instance for it. Cake service equal to service factory dot create of type cakes, and to create the service we have to use the name that was registered here. Copy it and pass it. Okay, so it's going to create the entity collection service. Okay, so using this service I can get the all the collection of cakes from the store. So for that what I can do, I simply create use a observable variable. Okay, all cakes, and its type is observable loads from RxJS cakes of array. Okay, and inside of the constructor what I will do, I will register the selector here. To register the selector, this dot cake service dot entities. So this is going to fetches all the data from my store. Which store? Cake entity store. It will fetches since it is observable. Any change automatically assigned to this observable as well. Okay, but to get the data and to store it into the data NgRx store, API call must be happened, right? How it will happen? In general, normal NgRx store, what we will do? We are going to invoke the action, and that action invokes the effects. In that effects, we will write the API call. Once the API call is successful, the response will be passed to another action method, and that action method is registered in the reducer, and in the reducer that action method will create a new state with the help of the response from the API. But here nothing we are going to write. We simply call this dot cake service dot get all. So get all means it will get all the data. Like that there are default methods. Okay, add means add API call. Okay, update means update API call. Delete means delete API call. Automatically logic is these are all abstract methods. Automatically logic existed means these are all generic methods. Okay, so if I close it and let's try to render the content of my cakes into my home component.html. Okay, for that what I will do, go to bootstrap and go to card component, go to bottom. I want a space separated by cards. Okay, I want this kind of card. Remove it. Okay, I want 3 boxes per row. Okay, So what I will do, I will remove these duplicate calls because anyway I am going to loop them. Okay. So these are all my cards. Now ng for, okay, let cake from, sorry, cake of, what is the observable variable we are listening for data? All cakes. Since it is a observable, we have to use the async pipe for reading the data. Okay. Now I can bind the data here. So here title will be name of the cake, cake dot name. Here description like cake dot description, and here I will use some h3 not h3, some one more card body, sorry, ul, okay, of class card body I will use. Okay, let's copy it from the cards itself. Here there will be a list display option. Use cards with list. Okay, copy this ul. Okay, I just only want one line to display the price. Okay, price, and its value will be cake dot cost. Okay, this is I want to render. Save it and check in the website. So here nothing display. If you inspect element and in the console, you can see API call 404. See, if I reload again and in the fetch XHR, one API call is automatically happening with the host of our Angular API cakes automatically happening. This is because this is framed from the cakes entity metadata. Whatever name you give here, that pluralized will be used as API slash name of the entity here registered here. But we don't want this domain, right? We want our own custom API. For that, we have to implement the default HTTP URL generator. Okay. So it will be like a global. So what I will do, I will add it at the app module level. Okay. So for that, ng generate class. Okay. I will create a folder like shared in the app folder and one more folder like store, and name of my service is custom URL hyphen HTTP hyphen generator. Okay. I don't want any test files. Okay, file was created. So if I go to app folder, now I have a shared folder, inside of it a store, and inside of it custom URL. And it should be injectable service, decorate with injectable, and it should extend the default HTTP URL generator. Okay, and this constructor should inject the pluralizer, and that pluralizer must be passed to pluralizer that loads from NgRx data must be passed to superclass. Okay. Now we have to override a method like protected get resource URL. Okay, URLs. So this is the overloaded method. We are going to override it here. Okay, and here first we need to get the resource URL per entity name. So this entity name is nothing but the name of the entity we registered for our cake model. That is this name. Okay, cake. Okay, so here what I will do, let resource URLs equal to this dot known HTTP resource URLs. From this array we can get it by the name, that is entity name, input parameter. Okay, at all I want to change my URL when this dot entity name equal to name of my metadata, that is cake. Okay, check it here. So if that matches, or else by default your resource URLs will be returned. Else we are going to modify here. Okay. So here what we will do, resource URLs we are going to override. Okay. It contains collection resource URL. Okay. And one more URL like entity resource URL. We are going to give our API URL here, and also end with a slash, because for remaining like a post update it's going to add some dynamic parameters here. So end with a slash in both. Okay. Now we have to push the resource URL. So this dot register HTTP resource URLs. Okay. For this entity name, we have to register the newly updated resource URL. Okay. We have to register, and ultimately here we are returning this. Okay. So this is the custom HTTP URL generator for switching the API calls based on our cake entity. Okay. Now it should be registered in the app module. So in the app module, it is like it is an injectable service, like it can be registered in the providers. Okay. So inside of the providers, provide and default what is, we are extending HTTP URL generator. Next, use class. So what is use class means our custom URL HTTP generator class. Okay, we are mapping this explicitly, this provider. Okay. Yeah, now it should work. If I go to my Angular website, see, I'm able to render in the data. Okay, go here. Let me add this entire container inside of a container. Okay, container with margin top 2. Put all this. And remove the image tag. Now save it. Now check. It should be little better. Yeah. Now the panel is CRUD is little better, right? Okay. Next thing. So that's it. We are done with the API call. If you inspect here, you can see. Okay. And there is a plugin to check the Redux API calls. Here you can check in, but to view the data in this, we have to install one more library, that I forgot to install. Go to developer tools and NgRx store dev tools installation tab. Copy this command, okay, and go to terminal. Try to install the dev tools because I want to show how implicitly action methods get triggered. And now once again refresh our website and go to the developer tools. Now here see store is initialized and here you can see action. This is one action method. NgRx data all query. Okay, see here entity name. So these are default action methods. We didn't write any action logic, right? So this query all get executed whenever the get all method in the TS file. Go to home component TS file. This method triggers this action method. This action method contains effect that invokes the API call. Once the API response is successful and the response will be passed to the another action method, all success. So this action method pushes the data into the reducer and reduces generates the new state. And that data will be automatically processed by this service dot entities, okay, observable. Like that data, very simplified code. Okay, so let me show you the NgRx store code which I have done previously, so you will get better understanding. So here is my project sample that using NgRx store. Here I am saving the books. So if I go to home component, okay, for your understanding, I am showing this sample. Okay, here ng on it, you can see dispatch, and here I am invoking a book API action method. So these are all. So if I go here, see, I am going to show all the files. So this is my book module. Inside of the book module, I have a store module, designated store module. See how many files I have. Actions. See, these all codes we manually write. Effects. So the effects will contain API call and reducers that will update logic to the uh, store and selector for fetching the data and the normal entity. But when we come to our NGRX data, we no need to create the selector, reducer, action, all those things. It simply contains two files. One is normal model and the metadata. That's it. How simplified logic here we have when compared with the NGRX store. Okay, I think it's give you good idea how the size of the application will reduce if you use NGRX data for the CRUD related state management. Okay, so let me close this project. If you want NGRX store video, I have already created. You can check in my playlist. So now we are completely done with read operation in the CRUD, create, read, update, delete operation. So read operation is completed. Now what I will do, I want to implement the create operation. For that, I will create a new child module, sorry, child component, that is add component inside of the cakes module. Okay, so ng generate component. I want child component like instead of the cakes folder. Name of the component is add and hyphen tips hyphen text. Sorry, it is not skips. Okay, my add component is generated. First, let's add the routing in the cake routing module. Cake routing module. I'm going to add a path like add and component like add component. Okay. So it's depend upon small form for adding the data. So what I will do in the add component.html. Okay. First let's add a container and a small legend for title of my form. Add a new cake. Now let's take the form fields from the bootstrap. So bootstrap, go to forms section, form controls. So from here I will take this div. Okay. So I want three fields like name, description, and the cost. So I will paste 3 times. Okay. And it must be some meaningful text for name. So for will be assigned to ID. Okay. And it is not email address, it is a name. And it is not type email, it is a text. I don't want any placeholder. Same way, change for other input fields. Txt description text, remove placeholder, txt description, txt name, so cost placeholder, and it will be a number and it should be a cost. Okay, this is my form, and let's create a object or variable for form in add component.ts so that I can use ng model for form binding. So go to add component.ts file. So here let me add a cakes form of type my cakes. Okay. So here default ID will be 0, name will be empty, description will be empty, and cost will be 0. Okay. This is my form variable. Now I can use this to use the ng model binding. So to use ng model binding, we should import the namespace like form module in the cake entity module. Okay, sorry, cake module. So here import forms module. Okay. Now I can use the ng module. Ng model. So cake form dot name. So register this tag for every input field. Description and the cost. Okay. Now let's add a save button. Okay, for that what I can do, I will add a button. Type will be button itself, some classes ptn and btn, warning, and a button name add, and let me register a click event like a save method. So let me create this save method in my app add component.ts file. So here I have to invoke the API call for save. So where is the save method API call will be exist? That is a default method that is provided at entity collection service, right? So go to home component.ts. Okay. So let me inject this service factory here as well. Add component.ts constructor. Okay. And import the namespace from the data service. And next, let's create a cake service variable here also. Okay. So import the namespace and assign the cake service data same as it is. Okay. The constructor. Okay. Now I have the cake entity collection service. So using that, I can call the add API. This dot cake service dot add. So this is the default method for invoking the cake, and it is expecting some entity data. Sorry, form data. So this dot cake form, and I'm going to subscribe for it. Okay. And what I will do after successful API call updating state, I want to re-navigate back to my home page. For that, we need to inject one more service like router. Okay, that loads from the NgRx router module. Okay, so now here I can use that this dot router dot navigate. Okay, go to home page. Okay, that is my service. And now finally, let's add the add button in the home component.html file. Okay, so here let me add one more row. Okay, okay, call d4 offset md4. Okay, and let me add a anchor tag whose router link will be add, and let me add button class. So btn warning. Okay, add a new key. Okay, now let's test it. Go to our Angular website. Okay, I lost my stylings. Okay. Okay, now little better. If I click on add a new cake, I am in add new cake form, and also open this terminal, and let's try to check the new actions methods that's going to trigger for save API. Okay, here like bluish smash cake, customized cake. Okay, and $500. Bluish something is not correct in the add component.html. Okay, here it should be cost. Okay, now let's enter new smash cake customized and some $500. Now if I click on add button, it should invoke a action method implicitly. That action method triggers the effects, and that effects contains API call. Once the API call is successful, another action method will be triggered and implicitly pushes the data into the store. Okay, let me click on add button. So see, my data is successfully added. This is the new record I added, right? If I observe here, see, API, see my actions, save add one successful. Okay, see how easily it is executing with the store using the NgRx data. So we are successfully done with the add operation also. And now let's do the update operation. So to do the update operation, let me uh, create a new component like edit. Okay, so CLS I will use instead of add. Let me name it like edit my component name. Let's create. So edit component also created successfully. So what I have to do? Go to cake routing module and register the route for it for edit. For edit, path is like edit, and it should contain some dynamic value, nothing but the ID of the record. Okay, colon means this is the dynamic template of the URL. Any number, any value can be assigned there, and component equal to edit component. Okay, so now the routing is done. So what I will do, go to add component.html, add component.html, copy this entire form, almost same will be used in update. Okay, so go to edit component.html and paste it over here, and let's change few things like update, update cake, and button name will be update. Okay, and it should be update method. So what I will do, copy this method, go to edit component.ts. Let me create a method like update. Okay, for now let's leave it empty. And in edit component we want cake forms, right? Object. Go to add component.ts file and copy this entire cake form object and go to edit component.ts. Let's paste it over it. Okay, and import the cake. And our HTML is good now. Now we have to implement our logic in edit component.ts file. Now whenever we enter the edit component form, we have to populate our form with the item that we want to edit, right? That means we want to fetch the data from the store, right? So how it will fetch? For fetching also we need the ID that was present in the URL. URL we will have item ID that we want to edit, right? So what I will do in the ng on init, okay. So let me create a variable fetch form data, okay. Here I am going to use combine latest, which is a RxJS operator. So I am going to combine my observables that are like one is cake service because I want to fetch the data from the store, right? That means I want to use the cake service. So for that, what I will do, first we need to create the cake service instance, just like add component and ht home component. So for that, what I will do, just copy this entire line of code, constructor and the cake service, and paste it over here. Okay, and import the namespaces. Importing namespaces. Okay, now I have the cake service. Now, whenever we want to combine something, we should add a array, and in that array we have to specify our observables. My observable is this dot cake service dot entities. Okay, it will fetch us all the entity store, and but I want ID value, right? That is available in the route. For that, I need to read another service. So inject the private route, that is activated route. Okay, So using this activated route, this dot route dot param map, which is an observable. Okay, and array, column separated array. Okay, and I am going to subscribe for the combine latest. What it will do, it will fetch us the latest emitting output from the both the observables. Okay, that also here we will read as a array. First value will be the value of the first observable. Second value in the array will be the value of the second observable. Okay, so first observable will be the params, name it like params. Second observable will be the kx from. Okay, so in this subscriber, first let me get the id value. Id equal to number, because params will give string value. I want to convert it number. So params dot get id. So this name is nothing but the template name that was given in the cake routing module id value. Here if you given like cake id, then that here also text will be where the edit component, here also text will be cake id. Okay, like that you have to specify. So id, so if the id exists, filtered cake equal to kx dot, I want to filter from the all the data from the store. Okay, kx from store, filter c dot id equal to id. Okay, if filtered cake exists, then I want to update the data into the cakes form. Okay, here I cannot directly update the filtered cake directly, because it will be a store data which cannot be changed. So we have to create new object and assign the data to that object. So open brackets, triple dots, and copy the filtered cake data. So it is a array, right? Check from the index one. Okay. So if data doesn't exist, I'm going to navigate back to home page. So for suppose if user comes to edit page and he refreshes the page, at that time state won't available, right? State data will be lost once the browser is reloaded. At that time, it is better to navigate back to home page. This dot router dot navigate, router dot navigate to home page. Okay. Now it should populate my form data. And also once the update is successful, update is made, and we want to invoke the update API call. For that, this dot cake service dot update and pass the cake data. This dot cake form. Okay, it will invoke the update API call, and I am going to subscribe for it. And then I am going to this dot router dot navigate, okay, to home page. So that's it. Very simple our logic. Okay. Now let's add the edit button on cards in the home component.html. So here what I will do, I will create one more card body. In this body, I am going to have a anchor tag. Okay, ptn warning. Okay, and dynamic router link, right? So we should create the array. First path will be edit, and second part will be the id value. So to get the id value, cake.id. Okay, and name of this button is edit. Okay, let's test. save everything. Okay, now go to our Angular website. Now I got edit button. If I click on this edit button, let me update this red velvet price. I want to update it to some 750 bucks. Okay, if I click on update, see, price is updated, and here you can see update one action method, update one action method successful. Okay, from this you can observe. Okay, so that's all about the edit operation. And finally, let's do the update operation, delete operation for deleting a record. So for that, and you can also check the network calls for update API. Everything out URL passing the one in the URL automatically taken care by the NgRx data, because we anywhere we didn't specify the update call, right? Okay, that's how it will work. And for suppose if you have lot of query parameters, in general we will have filters, right? So at that time what you can do means you go to home component here without filters, right? There is one more overload method with get by query parameters. Okay, it will accept the uh, query parameters object. Okay, you can use that one. Okay, now I want to implement delete operation, right? I don't want to use any separate component. I just want to show you a bootstrap model as a confirmation pop-up for delete. Okay, so to use that, first declare window at the top, declare where window any. So this gives a control over the browser window inside of my component. Okay, now here let me add two more properties like delete model. So to this variable, I am going to assign the bootstrap model memory. Okay, and next ID to delete. Okay, item I want to delete. It's a number. Initially, I will store like 0. Okay. Now in the ng on it, I have to assign the memory of the bootstrap model pop-up. For that, this dot delete model equal to new window dot bootstrap dot model. Okay, and inside of it we have to access the model by document dot get element by id. Okay, here we have to give the id of our bootstrap model pop-up. So for that, let's go to bootstrap and go to the components of model. So model, click on models. So copy this html and go to home component.html, paste it over here, and it will, I don't want additional button. Name it like nice id value like delete model, any name you can give. So this name must be given here. Where here. Okay, and let's change some text here. Delete confirmation, and here I want to show, are you sure to delete this item, and it will be danger, and I will use confirm delete. And this pop-up should be open whenever delete button on the code clicked. So first let's create the button here. Here no need anchor tag, I can use a button directly. Okay, type button pass btn danger to display red color. Okay, and some click and open delete confirm some method I want to create, so it should be delete So copy this method, and this method should contain cake ID as input parameter. Okay, and copy this method and go to home component.ts file, create a new method, and you will get ID as an ID member. Now this dot item to delete equal to ID, and then I want to show the model pop-up. For that, this dot delete model dot show. So show method will open the pop-up. Okay. Once the user click on confirm delete, it should call the delete API. So for that, click equal to confirm delete method. Okay. So go to home component and confirm delete. To confirm the delete, we can use this dot take service dot delete method. So this method automatically calls the delete API call, and we have to pass the ID to delete. This dot item to delete, and here I am going to subscribe, and here I simply hide the model. This dot delete model dot hide for hiding the model, show for showing the model confirmation model. Okay, so logical implementation completed. Let's test. Go to our website. Here we got delete button, right? Let me delete this. You got confirmation. If you click close, nothing will happen. If I click on confirm delete, see my item is gone. And here you can see delete API is delete method request is invoked. And in the Redux, you can see the delete one successful API calls also invoked. Okay, so that's all about the use of NgRx data with a lightweight code for maintaining the state in the Angular application. I hope this video has delivered some useful information to you all. If you like my video, please support me by subscribing to my channel. Soon we are going to meet with new videos. Until then, signing off.